Hi, good morning. We're with the U.S. Embassy in Abu Dhabi, and we're here to talk to you about applying for student visas during the end of International Education Week. Happy Friday. I'm here with my colleague.
Yeah, we work for the consular section, and we are happy to answer your questions.
So to kick things off, we'll start with a general overview of sort of what to think about when you're applying for a student visa, some tips and tricks. We'll go into some mythbusters. We'll talk a little bit about the application process and what to expect at the interview, and then we'll answer some of the questions that you've submitted, and we'll do our best to answer the questions that you submit during this live session.
So our first question would be, what are some of the general tips for someone considering applying for a student visa?
Sure, that's a great question. So to kick things off, you don't need to pay for any additional visa assistance when you're making your application. Simply the application fee while you're submitting the online application is sufficient. There's no need for an outside service or anything. Always tell the truth in your application, both in the online application as well as your interview with the consular officer. The student visas are not a lottery system. We don't have any quotas. We're genuinely looking at each applicant on their own merits and what they're going to study. Showing documents to a consular officer are not essential during the interview process. An officer may ask to see them in order to better inform their decision. And finally, do your research. Why are you applying to a school? What do you hope to get out of it? And then tell us about it at the interview.
So what do you mean by do your research?
Sure, that's a great question. So consular officers are looking into why did you choose the school, how much will the program cost, how long will you stay, where do you plan to live, on campus, with friends or family, and what will you study in terms of major or any additional information. What are your goals for the program? What do you hope to do after you graduate? And what special services, if any, does the university offer that entice you to apply for that program?
So what are the steps to apply for a visa?
Sure, that's a great question. So first of all, you need to find a school that fits your goals and your needs, and do your research on that program. Apply for admission through that school to the program. Once you've been accepted to the program, apply and request for an I-20. That's the document that you need to apply for the student visa and pay your SEVIS fee. You'll fill out the DS-160, which is the online application. You'll pay for the visa application fee and schedule your interview. You can schedule the interview up to 120 days in advance of the start of your program. And finally, you'll visit the embassy or consulate for your visa interview.
What should student applicants know about the interview process?
Sure. So the first step, always good to start out on the right foot, is to show up to the interview on time. Show up at the time of your appointment. Please don't show up super early or super late. You'll initially come through security. We have a list of prohibited items to come in. Typically, any electronics, obviously weapons or explosives of any kind are not allowed. We do encourage you, it can be a bit of a long morning, so if you think you might get bored, you can always bring a book. After you go through security, you'll line up to do the initial intake. Somebody will check your documents. Somebody like my colleague will check your documents and just make sure you've got everything squared away to be prepared for your interview. You'll give your fingerprints. That's part of the requirements for any U.S. visa for folks over the age of 14. And then you'll be called for the interview with the consular officer.
Oh, so we will go to the mythbusters.
Sure.
Are there visa quotas for certain nationalities?
No, there are no visa quotas. We essentially look at each applicant on their own merits. Anybody from any nationality can apply to study in the U.S. We're open for you to study with us, and we're excited to meet you.
Is getting a student visa like the diversity visa lottery?
No, it's not. So we don't have a lottery system. It's not random. Again, we're looking at each applicant and what their program they're looking for, if they're qualified to study, if they're financially solvent to cover the cost of the program.
Do I need to pay a visa agent to get the visa?
No, honestly, you should save your money. The only payment that you have to pay is the application fee and the SEVIS fee, as well as any additional reciprocity fees that may be applicable to your nationality. If you have questions on reciprocity fees, you can go to our website, travel.state.gov, and determine if there's any additional fees. We do take payment for the reciprocity fee by cash or credit card in the cashier's office at the time of your interview.
Okay, so do applicants need to present a lot of documents at the time of interview?
It's good to be prepared. Typically, we might ask to see, your parents' bank statements. We may ask how you're planning to pay for school. If you have a scholarship letter, do please bring that. That'll help us inform the decision. Additionally, if you're applying for a program in the United States, we may ask to see English language scores or high school transcripts to get a full picture of you as a student.
Is it easy to lie or present fake documents at your interview?
Absolutely not. Consular officers are trained to identify fraudulent and fake documents, and that can actually be extremely detrimental to any opportunity to apply and receive a visa in the future. So we encourage you to be upfront. That's the best way that you can get a U.S. visa.
Is there a specific income level to get a visa?
No, there's no specific dollar amount that we're looking for. Academic programs in the United States vary widely in terms of cost. We're only looking for your ability to pay for the program and remain financially solvent.
So then we have some questions that we received before our session. We'll go through them. I have a valid tourist visa. Can I use to study in USA?
So again, this whole conversation is on student visas and how you can study in the United States. U.S. immigration law is quite strict on what you can do on different types of non-immigrant visas. Unfortunately, unless it's a very specific short-term course of study in the United States, you cannot do it on a tourist visa. Things like that might be, an incidental English class a couple of times a week during a regular tourist visa. You cannot go to university, community college, or any other type of educational program long-term on a tourist visa. You would need to apply for an F1 student visa.
My other question would be, I am an Emirati student studying in US and I came to UAE to visit my family. My visa will expire while I'm in UAE. How can I renew my visa?
That's a great question, and we see that a lot. If you've had a U.S. visa in the past, particularly within the last 4 years, and you are still a student in the same program, you haven't switched schools, you're still studying the same subject, you should be able to renew through the interview waiver program. On our website, that's called the Courier Renewal Service. You can send your documents through Emirates Post, and we should be able to renew your visa pretty quickly. If for any reason you can't wait the couple of weeks to turn it around through Emirates Post, you are able to schedule, make a new application, schedule an appointment. Don't worry too much if the appointment is significantly further in the future. Once you have the appointment scheduled, you can request an expedited appointment, and an officer will review the expedite request. If it's approved, then you are able to schedule your appointment at your convenience within a set amount of appointments that we have available for students.
Yeah, and in their expedite appointments, they can mention the start of the school date, and that will help us expediting it to before the date.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, the other question will be, I went to my visa interview a month ago and I received a yellow paper. I haven't heard anything from the embassy since. How much time will I have to wait? Is there a point of contact that I can get in touch with?
Sure, that's a great question. So every visa applicant, whether it's a student visa or your standard tourist visa or any other type of visa application, we have really high standards for national security, and we want to make sure that we do the appropriate amount of vetting for every applicant. So if you're in what's called administrative processing, that process on average can take 45 to 60 days. Sometimes it's done faster, sometimes it's done a bit longer. The best way to check your application status is to go on the appointment website. That'll have the most up-to-date information.
Then we have an interesting one. If I got accepted to study in US next fall, can my mother come with me? What type of visa does she need?
Sure. So your mother may apply to travel to the U.S. to visit you on a B1 or B2 tourist visa, but unfortunately, any long-term stays, unless she were, a student in her own right, she would be unable to accompany you full-time as a student while you're studying.
Can I apply for my visa in Abu Dhabi or Dubai as well?
You can apply at any consulate or embassy. Nationwide, we typically encourage worldwide, we typically encourage folks to apply in their country of residence. But yes, you are welcome to apply in either Abu Dhabi or Dubai. And just to recap for anybody who's joining us, we're from the consular section at the U.S. Embassy, and we're here talking about student visas and trying to answer as many questions as you might have in order to cap off International Education Week.
So the other question would be, there are huge backlog of student cases from April and I'm one of them. We all deferred our program and must reach to spring semester. What the consular plan for the backlog cases? Is it possible to speed up the number of issued visas before upcoming semester?
That's a great question. So globally, there's a backlog in visa appointments. Our section here in Abu Dhabi, our colleagues in Dubai, and every other consular section globally is working really hard to reduce the number of backlog cases. We know that this is impacting particularly students who have specific start dates to their programs. We have added a lot of capacity to our student visa application appointments. I encourage you to check the appointment website frequently. We're consistently adding and expanding capacity there. And also you may want to see if you are eligible for the interview waiver program for students. Additionally, if you are unable to get an appointment by the time of your appointment start date, but you have an appointment past that date, you are able to request, as Nadia mentioned, you're able to request an expedited appointment. Just be very clear in your expedite request that the officer will review when the start date of your program begins, what program you're going to study, and if you're traveling to the appointment so that we can best serve all of our customers.
So, what are the things that a university graduate student needs from papers in order to obtain a student visa in USA? To join graduate, continue their studies in US.
Okay. So for any time that you change your program, you would have to submit a new I-20 and proof of status payment, as well as it just sort of depends on the context there. If you're already a student studying, you may be able to renew it. But that's a bit of a specific question, and may every time that you change your program or adjust status, you may need to go through the application process again.
We'll take some Q&A from the Instagram. Hi, I have one entry F1 visa. What should I do to come back to my country for New Year holiday?
Okay, that's a great question. So similar to one of the earlier questions, if you have a visa that will expire or that is only a single entry, you would have to renew your visa while you're out of the country, out of the US, before you could re-enter the United States. So if you know that you're going to be traveling and you know that you'll be in the UAE or anywhere else outside of the US, you can apply for a visa renewal during that period of time. I wouldn't wait until you're on holiday. You can make the application now and schedule the appointment accordingly.
Someone is asking, can you send me your number?
I don't think we're going to do that today, but I appreciate it.
The numbers are online. All our links, contacts, and email addresses, everything is on the website, so you can go and take a look at the website.
The U.S. Visa Call Center is a good resource if you need to contact somebody related to consular affairs. We also had this question, how should we complete the box related to reasons of our previous refusal in the DS-160? Do we explain in detail or just mention the section? It's okay to just mention the section of the law under which you were refused, whether that's section 214B or 221G. Those are typically our most common refusals. So yeah, you don't need to write a novel. If you want to provide some context, you're able to, but it's not required for you to provide a lot of detail. And again, if you're just joining us, we're with the U.S. Embassy in Abu Dhabi. We're here talking about student visas to celebrate the end of International Education Week.
Someone is asking, what about the family cases of student visas?
Family cases. So if you're a student traveling and traveling to study in the United States, there are processes to have a spouse or children accompany you. Those are called F2 visas. They're sort of considered derivatives of the student. Their visa status depends on the student's status. You can apply for those at the time of interview, at the time of the same application as the F1 student. If you're talking about parents or anything like that coming to visit a student, you can apply for a general B1, B2 tourist visa to do short-term trips to the United States to visit the student.
So there is another question from our Facebook live session. What's the current backlog of category F21? F21 is not student visa.
No.
So we are doing this live session for student visas only.
But thank you for your question. We will have additional Q&A sessions on other visa types in the future. About a month ago, we had one on general B1, B2 tourism. So we will get to your questions eventually, I promise you.